Well, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Viking.TV. My name is Neil Barclay, and I'm based in Viking's London office, where I've worked for the past 13 years. And this evening on Wanderlust Wednesdays, the first of the new year, 2023, I'm delighted to be taking you on the top 5 musical destinations reaching Europe, Scandinavia, and the UK. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation on Music with Viking. Music offers a wonderful way to immerse yourself in the culture and history of Europe. Whatever the style of music, from the classic composers of Vienna to the lively fado performers of Lisbon, the Viking voyages we will discuss today showcase 5 of the best musical destinations in Europe and provide exceptional ways to sample and enjoy different genres throughout the centuries. Perhaps fittingly, our first stop on this musical tour of Europe is Vienna, Austria. Steeped in history, the Austrian capital is well known as a city of music, and it's easy to see why. Even the elegant architecture along the famed Ringstrasse seems to sing. There's a long musical tradition here, as well as spectacular venues in which to hear classic concerts from legendary composers. Now, the list of influential composers who have lived and worked here is impressive, and includes Ludwig van Beethoven, Johannes Brahms, Richard Strauss, Gustav Mahler, Joseph Haydn, and Franz Schubert, just to name a few. And we have 4 different itineraries that take you to Vienna: the 8-day Danube Waltz and Romantic Danube voyages, the 15-day Grand European Tour, and the 23-day European Sojourn. And the European Sojourn will encapsulate every part of Europe on this spectacular journey. Now, each of these voyages feature music-themed shore excursions in Austria's capital, Vienna. On the Mozart and Strauss concert excursion, you can witness a live performance from the renowned Vienna Resident Orchestra. In a historic venue, you'll witness this classical music period come to life as costumed singers and dancers take to the stage. And enjoy the beautiful strains of Strauss waltzes and selections from Mozart's The Magic Flute. And the magic continues after the performance with a scenic drive through an illuminated Vienna. For a more active diversion, the Viennese Waltz and Mozart excursion invites you to learn the steps of the famed waltz and visit Mozart's apartment in Vienna. You'll learn more about the famous composer's life and imagine him creating some of his greatest works in these very rooms. Plus, you can step back in time and enjoy a horse-drawn carriage ride through the city. Now, for a truly enchanting evening, our privileged access tour invites you to the illustrious Wiener Concert House, the stage for the world's best orchestras and solists. And here you'll enjoy a performance with Alma Deutscher, who will act as both conductor and violinist in an enthralling concert of both old and new music. You'll revel in the stirring presentation, backed by the Strauss Capella, an orchestra with tradition going back 200 years to the iconic composer himself. But let's learn more about Alma Deutscher in this short video.
Vienna is the music capital of Europe, and this elegant Austrian city has been home to many celebrated composers, including Schubert, Haydn, Strauss, and Mozart. Their timeless compositions are beloved around the world. And now there's a new generation of extraordinary musical talent in the city. Alma Deutscher was born in 2005 and began learning the piano at aged just 2. When she was 6 years old, she composed her first piano sonata and went on to start writing her first full-length opera aged 8. She's been described by some as the second Mozart, although she prefers to be the first Alma. And in 2019, she played a concert of her own compositions to a sold-out audience at New York's Carnegie Hall. can enjoy an exclusive live performance hosted by Alma in Vienna's concert house.
Hello everyone! I've had a passion for composing music and performing ever since I was really little. And now I have a new passion, conducting an orchestra. And so I'm incredibly excited that next year I'll be performing here in Vienna, exclusively for Viking guests. And I'll be conducting the wonderful Strauss Capella Orchestra and also leading them from the violin. And we'll play for you beautiful music from Vienna, pieces by Mozart, waltzes and polkas by this guy here, Johann Strauss, and also some of my own compositions, which I hope you'll want to hum all the way back to the ship and as you sail off down the Danube. And who knows, you might even get a sneak preview of some of my new compositions before anyone else does.
I do hope you enjoyed that short video. Now, no Vienna experience is complete without witnessing the Grand Vienna State Opera building. The neo-Renaissance styled venue on the famed Ringstrasse was completed in 1869 and seats 1,709 people. Now, though it was damaged during World War II, it's been carefully restored to its former glory. Before moving on from Vienna, I'd like to tell you about one more privileged access excursion, and that includes a delightful musical experience behind the scenes at the Vienna Boys Choir. You'll tour the boarding school of the Wiener Sangernaben, the Vienna Boys Choir, and meet some of the singers after an exclusive performance. Now, one of the best known choirs in the world, this perfectly pitched ensemble of trebles and altos is made up of around 100 choristers between the ages of 10 and 14. And in their day, Mozart and Bruckner performed with them, and Schubert and Haydn sang with them as youths. During your visit, you'll enjoy privileged access as you tour some common areas and rehearsal rooms where the boys live and exercise their voices. Then, retire to a salon for an uplifting 30-minute private concert, after which you'll have the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to meet and mingle with some of the choir members. But let's find out more about the Vienna Boys Choir in this short video.
1, 2, 3, up!
Witnessing the boys rehearsing before their evening performance is like listening to a choir of angels. Established by the Habsburg Empire in 1498, the Vienna Boys Choir provides a solid education and a chance to explore different countries.
The greatest part of being a member is probably going on tour the whole world.
Through the concerts, the boys gain perspective and self-confidence.
When I walk out on stage, I just feel free, hearing the applause from everybody. Yeah, it feels great.
In all, there are approximately 100 members from countries around the globe.
Van, how long have you been here?
2 years.
2 years.
Right.
Yeah. And you came from
St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg. We heard you singing earlier and it was absolutely beautiful. Your parents must be very proud.
Yeah, I think so.
With a thorough musical background in hand, many boys eventually become professional vocalists and treasure their days in the choir.
They think back to their past and remember that they were a member and then think, I've had the best past that I could have ever had.
Viking river cruises, sharing privileged access to the culture of Europe.
Next, we come to Paris, the romance capital of the world. From the street musicians and nightclubs of the Montmartre district to the famed cabaret in the Latin Quarter, the City of Light is also a city rich in music and dance. Now, 5 of our river voyages feature stays in Paris. We have the 8-day Paris in the heart of Normandy, and our new Christmas on the Seine itinerary, each of which sail round trip from Paris. The 12-day voyages, Paris to the Swiss Alps, which takes you from Paris to Zurich in Switzerland, and Cities of Light, which journeys from Paris to Prague in the Czech Republic. And of course, France's finest, a 15-day voyage from Paris right through to Avignon. Now, if you'd like to spend even more time here, we also offer 2- and 3-night pre- and post-extensions in the City of Light. The tradition of Parisian cabaret began in the 19th century during a period of exuberance and progress. Now, as Paris grew more vast and impersonal, many Parisians forged a village atmosphere within their arrondissements or their blocks and came to value unbridled entertainment. Now, this spirit lives on today at the famed Paradis Latin in the Latin Quarter. Gustave Eiffel built the establishment in 1887 to 1889 that you may visit on a shore excursion, Paris Cabaret with dinner, and you'll enjoy a delicious meal, then sit back and watch the extravagant revue featuring acrobatics, dazzling costumes, sensuality, and the show-stopping French can-can. It's an evening you will never forget. Now, from Paris, we head north on our musical journey to Bergen, Norway, most definitely one of my favourite destinations to visit. Now, this ancient city with deep Viking roots is nestled between soaring mountains and magnificent fjords. Founded in 1070 on a Viking settlement, it has a storied history in music, from folk right through to classical. In fact, each summer the city hosts an extensive concert series, though there's plenty to occupy music fans all year long. Now, we have many ocean itineraries that call in on Bergen. Viking Homeland's our flagship itinerary, which travels from Bergen to Stockholm in Sweden, into the midnight sun which hugs the Norwegian coastline. In search of the northern lights, Iceland's majestic landscapes, trade routes of the Middle Ages, in the wake of the Vikings, Viking homelands in majestic Iceland, Viking shores and fjords, and of course not forgetting our brand new Iceland and Norway's Arctic Explorer. This is again one of my favourites because you visit Svalbard in the very north of the country. You can also spend more time in Bergen on many of these voyages with a 2-night pre or post extension, and that's something that I would definitely recommend doing. Now, it's here in Bergen that Edvard Grieg, the famous Norwegian composer, was born in 1843. Now, best known for his piano and concerto in A minor and Peer Gynt suites, Grieg lived in the same house on his Trollhaugen estate, just outside the city centre, for 22 years, and wrote many of his best works in a little hut overlooking the fjord. Norway's most favoured son, he was inspired by Norwegian folk music and sought to raise its profile in his composing and his performances. But let's learn more about the great man.
Majestic scenes on canvas, local culture, music and traditions. In the 19th century, Norwegian Romanticism set out to preserve these elements of national identity. This patriotic movement inspired the imaginations of all Norwegians, including Edvard Grieg, who painted the essence of Norway with music, often incorporating elements of folk songs and always displaying Norway's wildness.
You can hear that he's either on the top of some mountains or he has his back to the mountains and looks out to the sea.
Grieg's love of nature led him to create his own sanctuary, Trollhaugen. In this tranquil setting, his spirit and creativity soared.
Grieg needed to be in the nature. He composed barely nothing when he was in a city.
Grieg spent summers amid this beauty with his wife Nina always at his side, writing fresh and intriguing compositions to take on tour once the snows began to fall.
The winter season Grieg spent down in Europe, and of course he met a lot of influential people there, and he invited them to come back to see him in Norway during the summer. They brought their wives, their children, even their servants.
Grieg's escape was the tiny composer's hut, a place of solitude where he spent countless hours breathing life into notes on paper.
He left his guests in the morning after breakfast and went down there and worked, coming up only for meals. So he wasn't that social with his guests after inviting them.
Today, the composer's hut appears virtually unchanged and includes a subtle reminder that while Grieg is remembered as larger than life, he was actually quite a diminutive man.
When he composed down at the studio, there was an upright, normal piano, and to sit right at the piano he needed to sit on something, and he used to sit on the collected piano sonatas of Beethoven. Luckily for Grieg and us, Beethoven composed 32 sonatas, so it's a fairly thick book.
Edvard Grieg spent 22 summers creating masterpieces while wrapped in the beauty of Trollhättan. And one wonders what would have come of the man without the place.
Grieg referred to Trollhättan, his home, as his best opus. It really reflects his personality. You can play Grieg's music everywhere, but the atmosphere, the idea of this man who built the house, that is something that you only can find within these walls. To be here and hear the music where it was created, it's really special.
Edvard Grieg left an amazing musical legacy, and we look forward to sharing with you more about the man and his gift.
I do hope you enjoyed that video on the life and times of Edvard Grieg. Now, the Trollhättan estate is now a museum and it's open to visitors all year long. On an excursion here, you can explore the grounds and enjoy an exclusive recital of his music. You'll also visit Fantoft Stave Church, which was built entirely of wood in 1150. Between 1880 and 1882, Grieg was the artistic director of the Bergen Philharmonic, one of the world's oldest orchestras. Today, the orchestra is based in Grieg Hall in central Bergen, where it performs classical concerts, operas, and contemporary works. Another legendary Norwegian musician was violinist and composer Ulla Bull. Now, born in Bergen in the year 1810, he was a true musical innovator, renowned for the speed and clarity at which he played, and he performed hundreds of concerts across Europe and beyond. He once even played atop a pyramid in Egypt. Bull also spent time in the US, performing and founding a colony in Pennsylvania called New Norway. In his later life, Bull bought the island of Lissund south of Bergen and had a residence built there. He continued to perform up to the year of his death, his last concert taking place in Chicago in 1880. Let's hear the mesmerising sounds of violin virtuosa Ulla Bull in this short video.
The 19th century brought Norway its first star. The man was Ole Bull, who delighted in squeezing every last drop of potential from his beloved violin.
Ole Bull was a unique musician. He could do things on violins which no other person could do. It's really difficult music, and that's why much of his music has not been played for, I think, 100 years.
A man of overwhelming confidence and charisma, Ole Bull took a most unusual path to greatness. Though already playing at age 5, he struggled with formal education.
It was said that Ole Bull was self-taught, but he had good teachers. The problem was that Ole Bull didn't want to learn so much. He wanted to invent it himself.
Full of curiosity, Bull challenged every aspect of music, even the fundamental design of the violin.
He did a lot of modifications on his instruments. He flattened the bridge and the fingerboard to be able to play all 4 strings at the same time, which is totally impossible on a regular instrument. So he would play like... only that he would play all strings at the same time. Now we have to cheat and kind of make it bounce from string to string, but he played all the strings at the same time.
Because that's a regular violin has a bowed.
Yeah.
The
So
four
he made
strings are bowed.
He didn't make it totally flat, but he made it more flat, and also had a longer bow, and maybe made it a little bit softer, so he would be able to reach all the strings.
Ole Bull mesmerized Europe, playing hundreds of concerts a year to packed houses. Yet he was never satisfied and searched constantly for ways to make the music even better.
He ruined a lot of fantastic instruments. He had some beautiful Guarneri instruments that he totally ruined. He caved out from beneath the wood until he went through it, you know. He was always in search of the perfect tone.
In his relentless quest to be recognized as the world's premier virtuoso violinist, Ole Bull was always creative, at times taking extreme measures to put his talent on display.
He went up to the highest mountain in Norway to play, and in 1876 he was playing on the top of the pyramid in Egypt.
From the capitals of Europe to Cuba and America, Ole Bull left his audiences spellbound. But music revealed just one side of this complex man. The French Revolution awakened another, his deep longing for an independent Norway.
All the musicians were fleeing, but Ole Bull, he was going in to see the revolution. He was inspired to make a revolution in Norway.
Ole Bull championed the cause throughout his life. He promoted Norwegian culture too, integrating folk songs into his music and writing themes inspired by Norway's natural beauty.
Ole Bull loved the nature of Norway. You can find that in his music. You can find the sunshine, you can find the thunder, you can find the mountains. He was a very passionate man.
His sanctuary while in Norway was the quiet island of Lysøyen, and the estate remains little changed. Located just outside Bergen, Villa Lysøyen offers a fascinating window into the life of this legendary man. The villa reflects his love for the many cultures through which he travelled during his career, and the nature in which he wrapped himself while at home. Ole Bull is just one of Norway's many cultural treasures. We look forward to sharing our beautiful homeland with you.
Making our way south across the North Sea, we come to London, England. Now, the musical history of England's capital dates back to the Victorian era, when British music halls entertained the masses. And we have numerous ocean voyages that call on London: the British Isles Explorer, Into the Midnight Sun, In Search of the Northern Lights, as well as our combination voyages featuring Baltic Jewels in the Midnight Sun, Scandinavia and the British Isles, and British Isles and Iceland Explorer. And all the information on these journeys can be found at Viking.com. Now, the Soho neighbourhood is a great place to start a musical tour of the city. The cobblestone streets of this district hum with the memories of the rowdy recording studios that launched some of the world's best musicians. The Rolling Stones, the Kinks and Elton John are just some of the big names known to have made music on Denmark Street. And Bob Marley is said to have bought his first guitar here. London remains highly regarded for its iconic venues, including the Royal Albert Hall in South Kensington, which opened in 1871. In addition to hosting classical performances from icons like Richard Wagner in 1877, music legends past and present have performed here as well, including Bob Dylan, Led Zeppelin, Bruce Springsteen and Adele. Now, the Roundhouse is another legendary venue, known for ushering in the punk scene of the late 70s and early 80s. The building is actually a former railway turntable constructed in the mid-19th century. Now, we can't discuss London's music scene without also mentioning Liverpool, and Liverpool can be visited on our British Isles Explorer voyage. Often called the world capital of pop, remarkably 56 musicians born and bred here have had #1 hits. Of course, Liverpool is also home to perhaps the most famous rock and roll band ever, the Beatles. And on our Beatles Experience excursion in Liverpool, you can come together for a magical mystery tour of the city and visit the places that inspired the band's songwriting, from Penny Lane to Strawberry Field. The final stop on our musical journey is Lisbon, Portugal, and this city has inspired explorers for centuries with its picturesque location at the mouth of the Tagus River. Savouring the local cuisine and port wine are, of course, favoured pastimes, as is appreciating live fado performances in the historic Alfama district. In addition to our popular river itinerary, Portugal's River of Gold, several of our ocean voyages call on Portugal's capital city as well, including Western Mediterranean Explorer and Crossing, the Mid-Atlantic Crossing in Iceland, and British Isles and Iberia, and full information can be found at Viking.com. Translated as fate, fado is renowned for its deeply expressive and melancholic character. It originated in the early 19th century on the streets of Lisbon's Alfama district and is usually accompanied by a Portuguese 12-string guitar. Now, any Lisboner will tell you that one of the city's must-do experiences is to wander among the cobblestone alleyways and slip inside a tasca or tavern and listen to Portugal's haunting national soundtrack. Now, each ballad speaks of life, of passion and struggle, and it evokes the Portuguese emotion of saudade, a longing for something lost. But let's learn about the dramatic songs of fado, born along Portugal's waterfront in this short video.
Fado comes from the Latin word fatum, for fate. Born along the waterfront, in alleys and taverns, the mournful, melancholy songs of fado speak of life, struggle and passion.
Por ti, chorei, sofri, até fui louca.
The genre originated in Portugal in the early 1800s and quickly took its place as the music of the country. Most Portuguese need but one word to describe fado, saudade, which loosely translates to longing.
Fado é uma paixão, né? O fado nasce já com.
I always say you are born with fado. Fado is jealousy. Fado is pain. Fado is love and betrayal. Fado is everything that we feel. Even as a child, when I listened to Amália Rodrigues, our queen of fado, I knew I was destined to follow the same path.
It's been said fado is actually a window into the soul of the Portuguese people. And after one evening, it's easy to understand why. Fado as an art form is held in such high regard, it's part of the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. Fado is sung with such passion that even though it's performed in Portuguese, you'll swear you understand every word. Fado will touch you.
Fado é tudo aquilo.
We all have fado inside us. We just need to have the courage to let our souls speak to the world. And because many will, fado will never die.
Come explore Portugal with Viking. Let us share with you this country's fascinating cultural treasures.
A newer variety of fado performed exclusively by men exists in the city of Coimbra, but Lisbon's scene has always been dominated by women. In a homage to the undisputed queen of fado, Amália Rodrigues, most performers have traditionally cloaked themselves in a black shawl and donned red lipstick before belting out songs of heartache, lost sailors and tempestuous passions as their voices hover on the edge of a sob. No matter where you watch fado, there are some unwritten rules. Remain completely silent, put down your utensils, and do not order a drink or enter the club until the performer has finished his or her song. Welcome back, everybody, and I do hope you enjoyed that presentation on musical journeys with Viking. Now, our voyages are on sale for both 2023 right through to 2024. So please get in touch with us or go online to find out more about the destinations that I've discussed in the presentation. And any questions that you have about tonight's presentation, please contact vikingfamily@viking.com. So thanks very much for joining me this evening, and I look forward to seeing you in the very near future. Thank you and good evening.